Oh, good afternoon, everybody. Oh my goodness, it's been so long since we've done this. I basically forgot how to do this. We're picking our way through GarageBand, trying to put together a podcast for the biggest news to hit Fayette County since, well, I guess last December when Sandy Creek made the Class Quad A state championship and won the whole darn thing. Now we got two teams in the state championship. Sandy Creek's back this time in Class AAA against Carrollton on Saturday. But Friday night, we got Stars Mill in their first ever state championship against Chattahoochee at 8 o'clock at the Georgia Dome. So with me is John Munford. Now, he does a lot of news primarily, but because I'm only one man and can't be at both these schools' games, he's had to cover Sandy Creek while I've been covering the Stars Mill beat for the past month when I'm not battling the flu. So we're going to kind of trade off here and talk about what we've seen this year and what we expect from these games. Let's start with Sandy Creek. They're the reigning state champions. Munford, you've seen them play the past couple weeks. What do you think people can expect to see this Saturday at 4:30 in the Dome?
Well, I don't know a whole lot about Carrollton, but I know that it's going to be a smash-mouth football game as far as Sandy Creek is concerned. I mean, they seem to be a very well-rounded ball club in terms of being able to pound the ball and run it when they need to and control the clock, and they can also make huge plays. I mean, they have several backs who can make big plays, and of course, Alex Chisholm is just a tremendous talent to run out there from the wideout standpoint, and also on defense. I mean, they could make you pay on defense too, and they've got quite a few different folks with a number of sacks there. That it's a very well-rounded ball club, and I think that even if their opponent matches up well with them, I think it's going to be a close game. And I don't think you could put anything past Creek at this point. I just don't think you can. They just seem to have that confidence and I wouldn't call it a swagger because they don't seem to be very cocky. They seem to be very confident. And I think that's something you really would like to see as a head coach going into a championship final game.
Well, I think one thing with Sandy Creek is they're starting to build themselves as one of those football dynasties. I can see them becoming a Northside Warner Robins or a Brookwood or a Camden County. They reload every year, and because they play so well and beat teams down so badly early on, they just build incredible depth. I mean, they're already playing a freshman, Damari Kidd, at a wide receiver position. And granted, he doesn't have a ton of catches this year, 16 or something like that. But still, that's confidence that you're building up for a freshman. That's how you get somebody like an Alex Chisholm in a senior year. Chisholm this year has 63 catches for 1,354 yards.
He has been amazing.
He had 3 touchdowns last week. And that's with people knowing, we got to stop Chisholm. How does that, that's incredible.
Yeah, he just seems to find a way to burn the secondary opponents. And I think he and Ronnie Bell kind of operate on a certain higher level. You know how you've played with someone for so long, sometimes you kind of know what they're thinking. It's almost like Ronnie Bell kind of sends him a little radio remote control signal and says, yo, would you juke that way so I can hit you? I mean, and there's nothing like a huge play from Chisholm that just electrifies that Sandy Creek crowd. I mean, they go crazy. The milk jugs go stirring. It's really something to watch.
Well, now, last week, Chisholm scores in the third play of the game. I remember being at the first game this season, and the very first play that Sandy Creek ran was a touchdown pass to Alex Chisholm at Whitewater, and it just sucks the air out of the crowd. It's like, what did we just see? A 70-yard touchdown pass, just boom, right there.
It totally does, and I think in the Dome, of course, things are going to change somewhat because the milk jugs aren't going to be having as much of an effect as they normally have in terms of the fans, but I know the fans are also going to be mighty loud, doing everything they can to support their team, and they've certainly got a good team to support. I mean, defensive-wise, I mean, if you take a look at their defensive stats, I mean, Gavin Rocker has 9 sacks on the season, and then he's not the only one you can focus on because they've got other guys who've broken through. You know, Xavier Chisholm and Stephon Austin both have 4 sacks each. Jamal Ware has 3, and then, of course, when they try to pass the ball, I mean, we've got a great secondary. Mike Hilton has 7 interceptions, and Bruce Dukes has 6, and Jamal Gilliam has 4, so I mean, no matter which way you go against Sandy Creek, the defense really stacks up well against no matter what the opposition's, what their best strengths are.
Well, the defense has just been outrageous this year. I mean, they've posted something like 5 shutouts. They've held opponents to below 10 points 9 times this season.
The average is 9 points a game.
Yeah, I mean,
the opponents average 9 points a game. I mean, that's got to be something that the opposing team looks at and says, you know what, this is a good defense. You know, we got to be bringing our A game. So it's very interesting.
One more player I want to mention because you touched on him a little bit earlier on defense, but he definitely needs to be mentioned on offense is Mike Hilton. He has 718 yards rushing, and he also has 55 yards receiving, and that's in addition to being one of the premier defensive players. You could make an argument he's the best football player in the county. I think that's an argument that Chip Walker likes to make every year. I know he tried to make it last year with the region, and, doesn't get too much argument from anybody else that's seen him play. Mike Hilton is the real deal.
There's a lot to be said about being a two-way threat, and it's something you usually see in a lot smaller schools because a lot of kids have to play two ways. But it takes a special kind of athlete. I mean, someone who's really well-trained and really dedicated, and he seems to have that je ne sais quoi. He seems to have that. Sixth sense about where a play is going to go, and I guess that's why he's such a big playmaker on defense. But you're right. I mean, he's basically their number 2 running back, and he averages 8.45 yards a carry. I mean, that is not a slouch. And between him and Derek Alexander, they've scored 31 of Sandy Creek's rushing touchdowns. That's 2/3 of the team's total. So, I mean, they pack a pretty good wall up in that backfield. And, of course, you can't do something like that without having the offensive line to clear the holes for you. So I know that those guys would definitely give a lot of credit to the offensive line as well.
Okay, well, before we move on to Stars Mill, let's nail this down. Is Sandy Creek going to win this Saturday?
I hesitate to jinx anybody. I think a lot of us reporters, we feel like we don't want to jinx anything and we're going to be hesitant. But I can tell you this, it is going to be one heck of a football game. And I think the only way Sandy Creek is going to lose is if somehow or another a couple of mistakes happen, maybe a fumble here or there that they could take advantage of. But other than that, I just don't see... Again, I don't know much about Carrollton, so you have to temper that. I don't have that knowledge.
Well, here's what we know about Carrollton. They got one guy named Broderick Snoddy, which is the worst name I think I've heard in football for a long time. And I'm very sorry. I realize you're a high school student, and we shouldn't.
He's probably a great kid. So
1,100 yards and 18 touchdowns. That's through 12 games. He's added to that. Quarterback is A.J. Barge. You got to watch out for this receiver, Telvin Brown, who's also a running back. He has almost 900 yards of total offense. That's through 12 games, and he had 12 touchdowns. He's added to that. Barge throws to his brother, Josh Barge, who's a good receiver. So there's some players to watch out for. And defensively, Darian Hill, 50 total tackles and 115 tackles for a loss. Tevin McCoy, 68 total tackles, 40 tackles for a loss. Aaron Brown, 77 total tackles, 16 tackles for a loss. I mean, there are some players that are going to do some damage. So, yeah, we're going to have to see what happens. This is running long already. Wow, there's so much to talk about. So we're going to move on to Stars Mill.